Okay, my friends, we'll move on with the class. We're talking about the book of Revelation. And we've gone through the 7 churches, which were 7 stages the disciple goes through until he reaches what is commonly called enlightenment. And when he reaches enlightenment, the heavens are open. And after the letters to the 7 churches in chapter 4, the heavens are open and he sees God, the throne, and all kinds of things going on around the throne of God. And this is symbolic of the disciple finding the kingdom of God within himself. Because this is what Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within. And to find God, the true God that never fails, you have to look within. And when you look within, you find all kinds of things. Because when the person reaches enlightenment, he takes his focus off of the outer gods. He's finally cured from relying on the outer gods. Remember in the 7 steps, he first of all kind of broke off from the outer gods and then was attracted back to them in a different form. And he keeps going back and forth until he finally focuses and makes a decision to go with the inner God and the heck with the outer ones. Okay, when he makes that decision, then the heavens are open and he sees God on his throne. In other words, he sees God on the throne within himself. And this is where he gets his highest revelation. Okay, we'll proceed where we left off. And we left off at this verse, verses 5 through 6. And out of the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings and voices. And there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God. And before the throne, there was a sea of glass like unto crystal. And in the midst of the throne, and let me get this a little better here. And in the midst of the throne and round about the throne were 4 beasts, full of eyes before and behind. Okay. Almost all these verses are very esoteric. I remember the first time I read the book of Revelations, I don't think I understood hardly any of it, you know. And it fascinated me. I thought, boy, this is really a challenge to understand. But to fully understand the 4 beasts, it talks about the 4 beasts, we must go back to the basic theme of the book of Revelation itself. And it says the purpose of the book of Revelation is the unveiling of Jesus Christ. So what does the unveiling of Christ mean? Does that mean just understanding who Jesus was? Or is it more than that?
Well, it's like if the Christ is within yourself, there's all these sheaths or layers between its demonstration and the inner reality. You know, the mind is in the way, the emotions are in the way, et cetera, et cetera. And those veils need to be lifted.
Exactly. Now, Jesus is often called the Christ. So does that mean he's the only Christ? Why was he called? Why do so many people call him the Christ? If Christ is also in you and millions of others, why did they call Jesus the Christ?
Wasn't it because he demonstrated it?
Exactly. He demonstrated what a perfect example of what the Christ was going to be like when it would manifest through Stacy or Curtis or Asaf or any of us. That's what we are supposed to become. And he was the first one to clearly demonstrate the Christ manifesting in man. And as a result, the Bible speaks of Jesus, it calls him the firstborn of many brethren. Okay. In other words, he was just the first. And so he kind of got the title of the Christ. Now it could also be translated A in the scriptures, but many people call him the Christ because he was the first, but he was just the firstborn of many brethren. In other words, there are many others to follow and to become just as much Christ as he is the Christ, because he was the firstborn of many. And even
He was born into the kingdom of God.
right. And even in the Bible, it says this: let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God. So what mind is supposed to be in you, Curtis?
This mind be in you, the mind of Christ.
Right. The same. In other
You're
words,
supposed to be thinking like Christ, acting like Christ. You're supposed to unveil the inner hidden Christ within, and which is the light of your own soul, and link with it.
yeah, in other words, visualize in your mind what it was like to be Jesus, and knowing he had a mission to manifest the Christ. And Paul says here, let this same mind be in you that was in him. Have the same attitude that Jesus had, that you are also a Christ and you're going to manifest the Christ just like he did. Let that mind be in you. Have you ever heard a sermon preached on that in church or cable TV?
No.
Probably haven't ever heard any minister tell you to do that. In other words,
JJ,
they just say bow down and worship Christ because he's so much greater than you. That's what they tell you. Yeah, also.
how is it different from being the Buddha? Or is it different from being the Buddha?
Well, the Buddha represented light and Jesus represented the love energy. So to have the main purpose, a mission of the Buddha was to be an example of enlightenment. The main example of Jesus was to be an example of the love of God. Okay, so if you could say, let the mind of the Buddha be within you. So if the mind of the Buddha is in you, you can then say to yourself, I can achieve enlightenment just as much as Buddha did. Okay. The mind of Christ is within you. You can think, I can manifest the Christ and the love of God just like Jesus did. Okay. So they just got two different missions that are both important aspects of God itself.
This gave me an excellent name for the ism. We could be Chris, as in like Xmas, Chris has the sound, the X letter has the sound of Chris. So we could be Chrisists.
Okay.
Chrisism.
Okay, well, you got your thinking cap on there, that's for sure.
Well, just adding one more idea.
Yeah. So the unveiling of Christ, as outlined in the first part of the book of Revelation, isn't just unveiling and understanding of the first Christ, which was Jesus Christ, but it's unveiling, stripping away the barriers between ordinary people like us and the Christ within. So the Christ is unveiled to us. And this is what the book of Revelation actually does. It unveils the Christ within us so we can discover all the same things that Jesus discovered and advanced to where he advanced. In reading the whole chapter here, chapter 4, we find that the perfected Christ consciousness consists of the following. Number one, first of all, the door to heaven was open. Okay. That means when the door to heaven is open to the individual, it means he starts recognizing he has soul contact and he can receive impressions from the inner God, the inner connection with God. 2, after making this contact and perceiving the inner God sitting on his throne, he perceives the inner God sitting on his throne within his own being. So that's where he finds God. And then third, he receives inner light from the inner voice. He hears that still small voice within. First of all, the disciple kind of thinks it's imagination, and then when he begins to trust it, it begins to be more present and more secure. 4, he sees 24 elders before the throne of God. That's 2 times 12. And this tells us that the person is in contact with the 2 heart centers, a heart center within the heart, and that's 12 petals. And then there's another heart center reflected in the crown of the head, and representing 12 male and 12 female energies. And so that's interesting. 5th is a sea of glass, or this is like the inner space that enlightens his mind. The inner always corresponds to the outer, and you look up in the skies and almost everything is filled with space except for stars here and there. And in the inner self, there it is mostly just space, and on reflection you find points of light where you can get revelation. And 6, we have these 4 beasts. Anyone know what the 4 beasts represent? The 4 beasts represent the lower nature and the keys to bringing it to the service of the throne. Now, the interesting thing about the 4 beasts, it says this. They were full of eyes before and behind, and these 4 beasts were serving and praising God. This represents the lower personality. It represents several things. One is what the Tibetan calls the lower quaternary. The lower quaternary consists of the etheric body, which he calls the true physical. The true physical is a body that we see, and then the duplicate, which holds the body together, which is the etheric body. And then the prana that we receive to invigorate our life here and keep it going is the second part of the quaternary. The third part is our emotional body, and the fourth part is our mental body. This is the ingredients that keep the lower self in play in the physical realm. And this is hard to control. But when it is controlled, then they will praise the God within. And this is symbolized by these 4 beasts circling around the throne of God, praising God. And it says, when these four beasts submit to the throne of God, then the 24 elders come into play, and they also submit to the will of God. So when the lower self is controlled, then the higher parts of yourself start to come into play. And this is what it's telling us. Now, these four beasts, it says, have 6 wings that enable them to fly up to the throne of God. And these wings are symbolic of the 6 active chakra centers that are active when the person reaches enlightenment. The first is the sacral center. This controls the sexual energy, and this has to be controlled by the disciple and put under control so it is not used for any harmful purpose. And the second is the solar plexus, which governs the lower emotions. This is a very difficult thing for disciples to master, so that one of the ways you know that you mastered it, if somebody comes and insults you, can you just handle that without being ruffled? Okay. And people have a hard time with that. And just like Will Smith the other day, when he went and slapped Chris Rock, he just couldn't handle that, what he perceived as an insult. And if he'd have been a higher disciple, he would have just let it go through it. Okay. Now, Chris Rock, on the other hand, was a great example. Will Smith went and slapped him right in the face, and he just continued as if nothing happened. So he was a really great example of how to handle an insult. And so we had one bad example of the Academy Awards and one really good example. 3, the heart center. This wing is activated when selfish love is replaced by spiritual, unselfish love, or the love of Christ. When the average person says, I love you, what he's really saying is, I want you for myself, okay? When the spiritual person thinks of love, he's thinking of what he can do to assist you or somebody else, okay? So that's one of the basic differences. And so this is one of the wings that has to be activated. 4, the throat center. This wing is activated when the seeker learns the principle of right speech and directs his words, thoughts, and creativity toward harmlessness and elevating the heart center toward service. And this is a problem for a lot of disciples along the path, is right speech and using your creative energies in a harmless, productive way. How many people use their creative energies for material goals, or maybe corrupt goals? Like, say, Epstein a while back, the guy that had the private island, and he was quite a creative guy, but he completely misused his creative energies. And creative energies are very easy to misuse. So we want to use them in a really positive way. Then the other wing, 5th wing, is the Ajna center, which is often called the 3rd eye. This is elevated when the door swings toward inspiration and brings down ideas. The 3rd eye is able to see into both worlds. It can see into the physical world, and it can see into the world where the ideas are. So it can bring inspired ideas from heaven to the earth. And this is an important type of vision. It's more than just like seeing auras or spirits of the dead or things like that that are often associated with the third eye, but it's seeing into the realm of divine ideas and then bringing them down to the physical plane where they can be of service to humanity. And the final one is the Crown Chakra, often called the 1,000-petaled lotus. This is activated when the disciple tunes in to the will of God. In other words, he makes that same statement that Jesus did, not my will, but thy will be done. And you can only make that statement when you have tested the voice within again and again and found it to be accurate. Because when the person first starts tuning into the inner voice, he doesn't trust it 100% because he thinks it's his imagination or something. But after testing it again and again, finding it to be accurate, he can finally say, not my will, but your will be done, because he recognizes that the higher will is from an intelligence that's beyond what can manifest in the physical body through your brain, so to speak. There's a higher intelligence there that sees from a higher angle of vision. A little bit like your dog trusts you. Maybe think of how much higher your intelligence is than your dog, or maybe even a flea, but we'll use a dog because we can understand that. And you with your intelligence can tell what's good for your dog or what's not good for your dog in a lot of ways that your dog can't. So for instance, you don't want your dog to get run over. So if he starts running in front of cars, you say, hey, bad dog, don't do that. So this higher will is something that we have to learn to trust, because it comes from intelligence beyond what we can manifest in the physical body. Okay, these 4 beasts then represent 4 realizations that must be obtained before, so the wings will have power to ascend from lower consciousness to higher consciousness. So around the throne of God are these 4 beasts, and each of them have 6 wings, and they're full of eyes all around them. And so they have to fly up to the throne of God. So we fly up to the throne of God by activating these 6 chakra centers within ourselves. And when these are the wings that we activate to pull us up to the throne. And there's 4 realizations. It tells us the first beast was like unto a lion, sign of Leo. What do you think that we're supposed to get from that, Curtis, since you're a big Leo guy?
Leo has a lot of lessons in Leo. He's learning to enjoy life, having fun, but he's also learning to master the personality. Like in the labors of Hercules, he has to master the lion within and go into the cave where the personality reigns supreme, and he has to surrender the personality to his higher self, so the self can govern the personality and not the other way around.
Right. Leo represents as the quintessential personality of the disciple, and he has to channel that all his personality talents, learn to channel them toward service of the inner God rather than the outer gods, so to speak. Okay. The
You can
second,
you can have a real strong personality, and a lot of Leos do, but they're all about me, me, me. You know, I control the stage, where the higher Leo says, okay, well, I'll create a stage where all can play. So he becomes more group conscious.
yeah, yeah. And the purpose of Leo is to find out, in astrology teachings, is to find out all the ingredients that you need to live a happy life, because it's about self-satisfaction, a lot of it. So the advanced Leo learns to how to make other people happy also. But you have to learn, first of all, learn what makes you happy. And how many people have a hard time figuring out what makes them happy? I bet every one of you has some friends or family that always seem to be somewhat disgruntled, and they don't seem to know what makes them happy. You know anybody like that, you guys?
Okay.
Yeah, I think we
Just go
all,
to a family reunion and listen to what they talk about.
yeah, there's always a couple complaining about everything, isn't there? Okay. Okay, the second beast was like a calf, Taurus. We have any Tauruses in the group? Speak up if you're a Taurus. No Tauruses?
Can't believe that.
I'm sure we got a Taurus or two.
Speak up, you Taurians.
Okay, anyway, the second beast was a calf, which represents a sign of Taurus. Now, Taurus ruled during the age of animal sacrifice. So this gives us a clue as to what is supposed to be overcome by the symbol of the second beast, the animal within ourselves. Okay, we have, and what's the difference between an animal and a evolved human?
Well, the lower nature rules in the animal. In the 12 labors of Hercules, Hercules has to master the bull, which represents his lower nature, and especially the sacral center, or his sexual desire. He doesn't kill the bull, but he has to ride the bull across the water and master it. So he's mastering his lower nature.
Yeah, right. That's what we have to do. The second beast represents mastery of our lower nature, our animal instincts. We don't destroy the animal, but like Curtis says, Hercules rode and mastered the animal. And so we can channel the desires of the lower nature into the right direction. That's what the disciple must do. The third beast had a face of a man, and this represents Aquarius, the exact opposite of Leo on the zodiac. So what would be the realization here? It's that once the ego and the lower desires are under the control of the spirit, then the lower nature will be used in the service of humanity. And the keynote for Aquarius is service. So he masters the personality and then the lower nature, and then he uses his energies in the service of humanity. And this is a symbol of the third beast.
And he's got the picture which is always full, which is his means of service. So he can always pour out blessings and service upon all the people around him.
That's an interesting statement. Where did you hear that the pitcher is always full? That's a kind of an interesting take.
I just made that up.
Oh, you did? Well, good thinking.
Well, you know, a lot of people say my cup is half empty or half full. And I thought, well, in Aquarius, he's got the pitcher and it's always full. So he's a server and he never feels like he is lacking because it's always never runs out.
And this is esoteric teachings behind service is when you give, there's no loss. And so
Right.
The fact that the pitcher will always be full is a really good idea, because you see the image of Aquarius holding the pitcher and he's pouring out water to a thirsty world. And so visualizing that pitcher is never running out is pretty interesting. Now the fourth beast is like a flying eagle. And the flying eagle represents a sign of Scorpio. That's exact opposite of Taurus on the zodiac. Scorpio represents laws, principles, and events which are set in motion over which you have no control. And what the disciple has to do with these events is to steer them in such a way that they wind up being of service rather than of hindrance. Because as you go through life, even though you're doing everything you can, following the highest, you have things that occur in your life that are totally unexpected. It may be an accident, it may be a divorce, it may be death in the family, something like that. You have things that happen that you were just not expecting at all. Can you people identify with that? How about you, Natalie? You've had things happen like your daughter. You weren't expecting that, were you? Her accident.
No.
Oh, and it sounds to me like you made the best of a really awkward situation, because you've really focused on turning the negative into a positive. It sounds to me like.
It's the best you can do. So
What do you
yeah.
feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, everything's about perspective. So yeah.
Yeah. And oftentimes these things can turn your life around when you have something that's devastating happen. I know in my life I've had quite a number of things like that, and so sometimes when I'm talking to God, I say, I don't really need another lesson right now.
I've learned. Let's move on.
Yeah, I'm learning the best I can without, devastating things happen. And so
Don't hit me again.
And
hold back. Hold back
never,
for a
ever,
while.
never, ever tell God that you're ready for your next lesson.
Yeah, right.
Because it'll be here tomorrow if you do.
Don't send me back to jail.
Yeah, I bet everybody here could tell a story about something unexpected that happened in their life that, on hindsight, when it's all over and said and done, and you look back on the experience, you wouldn't really trade it for anything. It's really valuable to you. I look back on things that happened to me that I thought was just devastating at the time, but now, because I handled it and I dealt with it and I learned, I wouldn't trade that learning for anything, but I'm certainly not asking for more. Just want to relax a little bit right now. But well, let's pick on somebody here.
Pick on Ken. He's easy to pick on.
Yeah, he's had an easy life, right? He just dealt with a big storm over there that just about killed everybody. So you probably weren't expecting that, were you, Ken?
No, I wasn't. What happened to me, let's see, when I think that was in 2001. It's been about 20 years ago. I was working in a steel plant. I was a welder. And it was kind of a hard job, but it was okay for me. I didn't mind it. But the problem was I was working long hours, and I was really in a group of Bible study group. And so one morning, while I was welding, I was thinking, I just don't have enough time to study. I would wake up with my keyboard imprint on my forehead. I'd fall asleep at the desk. That's how bad it was. So I made a prayer. So I prayed for more time. And about 10 minutes later, I was flat on my back on the floor. One of those big heavy metal truck frames we built fell on top of me.
Really?
Yeah, and I knew my back was broken. I could see an X-ray in my mind. I could see it. I could see my.
Really?
Yeah. So, wow, that was the quickest prayer I ever had answered.
Oh, wow.
Now, what did you ask for again?
I asked for more time to study.
Oh, more time to study. I guess that worked, huh?
That
Yeah.
broke your back doing it, huh?
Yeah. But it has given me time, and I probably wouldn't be here now I wouldn't be right here now if that hadn't happened.
Yeah. You kind of look at those things and how much different it affected your life. That's weird the way things worked out.
I never dreamed I would be like, I never knew a group like this that even existed. And, but I had all this time, and I just kept looking. I started to look outside of the Bible and in other things I didn't know when I got the internet, and I just kept searching and searching. And how I found your Immortal book was I was searching for the mysteries. Jesus talked about the hidden mysteries. And that's how I found the Immortal, searching the mysteries.
Yeah, this is an important aspect of the four beasts. The final beast, the final test to being able to ascend and bring the lower self up to the presence of God, so it can bask in the inner, presence can shine on the outer, is handling these unfortunate events that happen, seemingly unfortunate events that happen in a way that moves you forward. Because how many people do you know that have had something bad happen to them? They'll start cursing God or not believing in God anymore or blaming God, and they blame everything out there. And then there's other people that say, well, maybe there's a reason for this, and I'll just, whether there's a reason or not, I'll just make the best of it, okay? And they make the best of it, and they find there's things to be learned from this horrific circumstance that they found themselves in. Like Ken broke his back, and he found, hey, I got more time to study and read and do what I wanted, actually. And I'm sure quite a few people could give us accounts of things that happened to them. Well, Jill just about died here recently, didn't you, Jill? And you pulled through.
Yeah,
And now she's stronger than ever, right? You look stronger than ever.
I wouldn't say stronger than ever, but
In your mind, maybe not your body, but
okay. I'll accept that. But it's funny because I didn't at the time. I didn't realize, that I was as sick as I was, until it was all said and done with. And when I had that episode of kidney failure, it was at my follow-up visit when I was feeling better that the doctor said to me, I don't think you know how close you were to leaving us, and that when she said that was a wake-up call, because I had no idea I was that sick.
Yeah.
So it wasn't something that I realized in the moment, as being beneficial in some way. It was kind of like hindsight in a way. But I've also had tragic things happen in my life that I don't 100% agree with you, JJ, that positive things came out of it. And the one thing that I can think of is 4 years ago when I lost my oldest son to a drug overdose. I can't for the life of me see any positive coming out of that. Yeah, other people have said, well, yeah, you know, it teaches you a lesson about not to mess with drugs, but you know, that was the lesson he was to learn, not me, you know?
Yeah, this is still an important thing. If you can't see, there are some things that happen, like say a kid commits suicide or something like that, and maybe that was not in his life's plan either. Okay, it's just something traumatic that happened, but
Right.
still, this is one of those things that you had no control over, that you have to deal with.
Right.
And if you can deal with this in a positive way, thinking instead of cursing God and everything, thinking, well, this is one of those things and I'll just make the best of it. And if the disciple does nothing but just that, then he's able to move ahead. But
You know who's a really good example of that?
Who's that?
Your mom.
Yeah, she was.
You know, she broke when she in her late 80s, she tripped over a hose and broke her hip. And she healed like in a couple months. And usually people that break their hip at that age, usually it kills them, they die. And she goes, you know, it wasn't so bad. I wasn't mad that I broke my hip. I was mad that I didn't see that damn hose.
Yeah.
But she could always rise above any obstacle. And I think she passed that trait on to you and me and most of the members of her family.
Yeah, I think a lot of traumatic things that happen to us are planned by our souls to teach us, but I also believe there are things that are pretty much pure accidents. And those type of things we have to handle too. And we have to not let them move us backwards. But if you can take the worst of life and just handle it and not let it affect you in a negative way, then you're moving closer to the throne of God. And this is one of the keys there, because how you look at a lot of people, they're really good people in many ways, and then they have something traumatic or destructive happen to their lives, and sometimes it will just ruin them. That's all they can think of the rest of their life. And it sets them back maybe a lifetime or two. And this is what the disciple has to avoid. And this is what the disciple has mastered, that reaches this point to where he has communion with the God within. He doesn't let anything interfere. Okay. Okay, any comments or questions on that?
So then he can soar to greater heights. Isn't that what the eagle represents? He's able
Yeah,
to
that's a good
fly,
point. Yeah, the eagle flies very high.
flies into the sun or into the soul or into his throne, his higher self.
Yeah, that's a good point, Curtis. That's probably why they use the symbol of the eagle for this this final beast, final conquest. Have them make that final conquest of not letting anything in life gets the best of you, because all of us have things happen to them. Is there anybody here that ever has lived in their life, you haven't had anything really tough to handle happen to you? How about you, Elena? You lived a charmed life, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Have you had a few things you've had to handle?
Yeah, 2010, 2011, those were some rough years.
Yeah.
But it was also when I found your writings. So, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, you know, we pick on almost anyone and accuse them of having a charmed life, they'll disagree with you. No, nobody really thinks their life is completely charmed. However, one of the things I've taught is 1 life out of 7 is a Sabbath, and it's easier. It's still not completely easy, but it's you don't have like major confrontations in maybe 1 life out of 7 to give you just a little bit of rest. But
That sounds like Ed.
There's a Zen.
yeah, Ed's got a pretty charmed life. I've never seen him complain at all.
There's a Zen statement that says, "May your life be a troubled one, so at the end you'll find peace."
Yeah, that's kind of a cool statement, Ed. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people like, oh, Ed over here, we think, well, you know, he's never complained about anything. He must have a charmed life, but yet you have some conversations with these people, you find out they've had struggles just like everybody else.
Life is meant to have struggles, but if there's no struggle, there's no growth.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, it's been a good group today. Any comments or questions before we sign off?
Yeah, JJ, let me ask you, do you know who Maroney McIntosh Young was? Are you familiar with that name? I may be pronouncing her first name.
Moroni, it's sound like some Mormon name.
Yeah, he was Brigham Young's one of his grandsons. This fellow here, he's the one who sculpted. He's a very well-known artist. He was a Mormon. He did the seagull with the globe on the Mormon church temple.
Yeah.
He's the one who designed that. He designed John Smith and his wife, 2 bronze statues or sculptures, you know, something. They're at the Mormon temple. Anyway, I've got a piece of this artwork for sale.
Really?
Look this guy up. Yeah, he's real famous. I mean, he's stuff in Washington, D.C. He's a painter, a sculptor, artist.
Oh, yeah? Oh,
And high up in the Church of Mormonism.
okay.
If
So
you're-
keep that in mind, there's a number of people with Mormon background here might be interested.
Yeah, well, I'll send you a picture or something of the art, the piece of I've had this piece for over 20 years, and I didn't know really who the artist was, and then I just recently I found out. Now, most of the stuff is in museums. I might get a museum to buy it. I don't know, but I'm going to put it up for sale pretty soon.
Okay, our class next week, we're going to talk about Revelations 4:8 through 11. And Jill, are you still here?
Yeah, she's there.
Yes, I'm here, JJ.
Would you like to give a rundown of this next week?
I have a pretty busy week coming up.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, I don't want to take it on and then not have the time to devote to it.
Oh, okay.
So
Uh,
let me pass temporarily.
Pick another time then. Let's see.
Yeah.
Well, I'll ask for volunteers. If anyone wants to volunteer first. That hasn't done it yet. Let's see. Well, let's pick on Lawrence. Larry, would you like to do it? Oh, he might have taken a,
Had to get the mute.
oh, there he is.
Which one was it?
Revelations 4:8 through 11. Do you have you got a downloaded copy of the unveiling?
I don't know that I do.
Okay, well, I could just send you the text of this by email of the interpretation, and you can go over that and give your own thoughts too if you want.
Revelations 4:8 through 11.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, you want to do that then next week?
Give it a shot.
Okay.
Can't promise what you'll get.
Yeah, well, I'm taking a chance on every one of you here, so far, so far it's paid off. So, yeah, I'll send you some text on that.
Okay.
And we'll go from there.
That's
Okay,
gotta be
my friends,
everything really.
and any other comments or questions before we sign off? Well, good group, and we had a good vibes here, so we will see you next Sunday at 10 a.m. all being well. Mountain Daylight Time.
Thank you.
You.
Have a great week, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.